Darling, you send me, I know you send me.
Hello friends and family, welcome back to my channel. Every time I start my videos, I never know how to start because it's been like 3 months or a year since I have filmed. I feel like it has been a train wreck of a year and everybody has emphasized it, and I feel like I don't need to say it again, but it has been a train wreck of a year. And for me, I had to do classes fully switched into a different time zone, even though I'm in the Asia time zone. So yeah, I've been very tired. I have been very, very tired. But on the bright side, I have been doing a lot of reading. In the past, I've always wanted to read a lot more than I was able to during the academic semesters because I usually only stick to the academic readings that I've been assigned, even though there's quite a few, or there's 2 that's academic in here. But this year, because I've barely been able to leave my house, I've been getting a lot more reading done. So, as you can gather by the title of this video, I want to tell you about my favorite books of 2020. Ones that I think you should read, ones that made me happy, ones that gave me hope. There was a lot, and there is still quite a fair bit in this pile, but I tried to narrow it down to as little as possible. And I would love for you to tell me how your year is going. We can have like a little DMC. 2 people even say that. I literally feel like a boomer right now. We can have a little chat if you need about your year. I'd love to hear about it. Personally, it hasn't been the best, but like I said, I've been able to read quite a bit, so then there is some like silver lining, I suppose, to this train wreck. Okay, so let's get started. The first book I have here is Dracula, and as you can see by the many annotations and post-it notes I have, and this is academic. So I read this in my Gothic literature class, and also this is a broad view version, so I don't recommend it because it was really expensive, but I only got it because I needed the notes for the class. So this has been a book that I've wanted to read for a very long time. It is just very long, and I never want to read something like that because I've always wanted to read something that's a bit more light next to my academic readings. But I did take a Gothic literature class this semester that gave me an excuse to read this book. Without giving any spoilers away, I don't think this is supposed to be like a scary book, because maybe it's what I've been taught in my class, but like it sounded like a manual of how you're supposed to act in the Victorian time instead. Like it's more of like how women should be acting, you know, like the 2 main characters, or the 2 main female characters. It really shows, like Nina and Lucy, it shows how essentially women should be acting. Dracula wasn't the biggest presence in this novel, weirdly. Like it was discussed obviously, but then there were other things like, oh, women should do this, but then we're also killing a vampire. And Dracula was almost like not a vampire, or okay, he was a vampire, it's hard, like I don't know how to say this, but like he was a vampire, but it was like he was a code for something else, because even though he was scary, I didn't see him, or I wanted to have more scary, if that made sense. In many reviews, he's spoken as like a code for the other, or the Victorian times, like fear of the other, and also it was a fear of degeneration for the Victorian people, and a lot of that has been written into Dracula. That's why I think for me it wasn't as, or what I expected essentially. So I think it is more a book on Victorian etiquette instead of like a scary vampire novel. I mean, that exists here, I'm not gonna lie, it exists, but it's not as like Twilight, I guess. Like but maybe it's because I'm like the modern audience. Back then it probably was a very good book. But this is one of my favorite books because of the writing. I thought the way the author wrote the book was really interesting as well. It was like journal entries, and you really had everybody's perspective. So it was first person in the most interesting way in my mind. And it was very interesting to see how everybody was like scheming and talking about how to kill Dracula essentially. But it was just too tidy. And this is a spoiler, but at the end, if you didn't know this already, you can just skip past this part. Dracula just dies. Like there's no fight whatsoever from him. So like that just made me a bit disappointed, but I still put it in my favorite because a lot of the tropes we see from Twilight, for example, or Vampire Diaries exists in Dracula. So it was kind of interesting to see my kind of like favorite vampire tropes played out, tropes played out in Dracula. So I did enjoy that element. But I did just give this 3 stars because of the tidy ending. So yeah. Okay, so the next book is also one that I read for class, and it's also from the same class, Gothic Lit, and it's A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Okay, I promise it is not all academic books. We will get to like more fun stuff later, but this is still one of my favorite books of, or this was, or no, it still is 2020. This is still one of my favorite books of 2020 because it did give me a lot of hope. It is a very Christmassy, very like autumnal, warm read, so I really loved it. And I did grow up watching the Disney, I think, the Disney version of A Christmas Carol, and it used to freak me out a lot as well. But reading it, it's less about the ghosts and more of how, like, perspective, I think. Can't find the exact words for it, but it's more like perspective and how that helps Scrooge gain more empathy and sympathy in a way. This is like a thicker book because it's a 3-book-in-1 kind of thing, but A Christmas Carol is literally just this. And I read this, I think, in like 2 hours, and it was so cute, and it just gave me hope again. It's different from the movie just because it does, I feel like, explain Scrooge's feelings a lot more, and also it empathizes on why he is how he is and how he ends up changing, obviously. So I do recommend this. A great Christmas read, a great winterish read, and it is only like I said, my version is only 85 pages long, so it is a short little read. Okay, I've been talking for straight 20 minutes on just 2 books, so I'm gonna speed it up a little bit more. The next one is A Devil in a White City. A Devil in the White City, sorry. Okay, I just realized I have a lot of Gothic stuff in my list, and horror stuff in my list, because this year I kind of like made an effort to read more horror things because I used to just read super light, fun, sci-fi kind of stuff. And I wanted to just read more horror. Like, I've never really tapped into that genre, so this is definitely one of my favorites, and if you don't know about it, it is based on a true story. It has a lot of historical context in it, and it is based on how the Chicago World's Fair was kind of like a tool for a serial killer to do his killing. And if you know me, you know I love true crime, and this was amazing, and it freaked me out so much. It scared me so much because I kept imagining what it would be like, and it was so detailed. Erik Larson does a very good job on explaining and describing the scenery. He did a lot of research into the killer and the World's Fair and how it all panned out, how those two linked together. And I gave it 4 stars because, or honestly, I think I gave it 3 stars before, but then I upped it a little bit to like 3 3/4 maybe, because Erik Larson, like, I was half expecting something to happen. I kept expecting like something to jump out at me, or like the killer to like make his next move or something, right? But then Erik Larson ends up talking about how the elevator was made or something, and don't get me wrong, it was very interesting, but just not, I guess, like, I just wanted it to be like, I wanted it to scare me a little bit more, you know? And I don't think it has like the best review because it feels like it's 2 stories. Like, you don't really get the link until, or how the World Fair and the killer comes together until sort of near to the end of the novel. But it was also really cool because there was a lot of historical figures crossing paths, like Walt Disney's father. He also helped with the World's Fair, and you kind of get like how Walt Disney got his ideas and how it all came to be. There was also a really cool section on Susan B. Anthony and Buffalo Bill, which was like, I never thought they would cross paths, but they did. So that was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. If you're into that kind of thing, this is a really good novel for you. Okay, the next one is a little bit lighter. It is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. The only other novel that I've read by her is Evelyn Hugo. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I love that. I gave that a 5 stars, and it's definitely something that I'll reread. It was so beautifully written, and so is this, but I did give it a 4 stars because it wasn't as good as Evelyn Hugo, but it is still fantastic, and I highly recommend you read it. It's so good. So it's definitely not something I'll be rushing to reread, but it was really, really good. I think my favorite character, without giving any spoilers away, is Camilla in the novel. She made me cry so much. So much, and she just makes me believe in love. She has the most patience and the most forgiveness in her heart, not for everybody, but just for her true love, because she just knows that that's who she's meant to be with. How she goes about love and how she believes in love, or what she believes in, makes me believe in love, and I think it'll make the other readers believe in love as well. I can't speak to most of the experiences of Daisy Jones and the rest of the band in the novel, but it was like reading a Rolling Stone piece of a incredibly cool like 70s rock band, and I really enjoyed that. It is so beautiful. So yeah, I highly recommend it, and if you read it, keep a lookout for Camilla. She doesn't have the biggest role, I think, in the novel, but she kind of creeps up on you and you will enjoy it, I promise. Okay. And the next one I have on my list is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. So good, so good. It was like Riverdale meets American Horror Story type of vibe. I gave this 4 stars also, maybe a 5 if I want to reread it, I don't know. But I gave it 4 stars because I didn't expect the ending at all, and I don't think you would either. It is a crazy ending. I mean, I kind of expected something like it, maybe a little bit, just tiny little bit. It reminds me of the Bront novels a little bit, but not at all how you would expect it to end. It is so interesting, and the author does a very good job of explaining how, because at first you would think that's impossible, but then it ends up making sense. So because I couldn't go out a lot, I've been watching a lot of Noelle. I'll link her down below. She's so amazing. If you haven't watched her videos, I highly recommend you watch. It just makes me feel so calm. And she actually made me put my creamer in my coffee first, so that's something else I learned from her channel. And if you watch Noelle, you know she raves about this book so much, and that book is Misery by Stephen King. This is my first ever Stephen King novel. Like I said, I never read horror before this year. I was just like, I think I just really wanted to feel something this year, and I chose horror as a genre to focus on, and I loved it. I loved it so much. And usually things like ghosts kind of horror doesn't scare me too much. I mean, it does, but like not as much as something like Misery, where there's someone like Annie, like an actual person who torments with you, and that really freaks me out. Every single moment from beginning to end was a page turner in this book. There wasn't a moment where I was like, okay, I need to give it a chance till the end of chapter 1. I was scared right from the get-go. It's quite a simple novel in the sense that there really is only 2 characters throughout the entire novel, but that's what made it even more scary. There's a lot of loneliness and exile, and then you also learn about Annie. Like, I genuinely feel like Annie could be a real person, which is even more scary, essentially. And every time Stephen King gives you like a little bit of hope, he takes it away. He gives you like a little sprinkle, and then he like throws it all away, and then it's like so frustrating, but it is so well written, and it's so scary again. Because every time you think Paul is gonna get out of the situation, he doesn't, right? And it is so extremely scary. And it has a good ending. It is tidy, but tidy in a way that's not like Dracula tidy. It is very well written. I highly suggest it. It is so good. I think I finished this in, I think, 2 or 3 days. I did have to take a mental break from it though, and like I kept getting scared. Like any single like movement around me, I'm like, And definitely 5 stars for this. I will definitely reread it. It is so damn good. The next book I have on my list is The Memory Police. I didn't really like this book until I did research after it. So I gave it 3 stars, but maybe it deserves a little bit more. But essentially it has like elements of a dystopian novel, and when I bought it from the sci-fi section of my bookstore. So I was going in to the book having expectations of the dystopian novels that I've read in the past, like Hunger Games and stuff like that. But this is just, it's not it. That's not what this book is. This also isn't a new book. This was written in 1994 and it was just recently translated into English. And yeah, like I said, it has elements of a dystopian novel, but it doesn't have the answers of a dystopian novel, if that makes sense. And I think it was done that way because I don't think it was the author's intention to write a dystopian novel. And like I said, I wasn't intelligent enough to pick up on this. I just kept reading and I was like waiting for a bomb to drop, and there were bombs, but it wasn't like, and I wanted my answers, so I watched a little video on it, and I also read an article that I will link below, but I don't think it does have quite a bit of spoilers, so maybe you should read the book and then read the analysis or the explanation of the novel. My favorite theory or explanation of the book is how the author was trying to write it as a mind, like the island where the memory police operates is our mind. I'll do my best to explain it without giving any spoilers. So essentially things start disappearing in this novel and people don't know why they start disappearing. Something as simple as like a bird or hats and ribbons disappear, and then it gets more intense, right, the disappearances. So the whole island can be viewed as the mind and how memory operates in the mind, and also what happens when something physiological or psychological makes that memory deteriorate and then disappear. And there's a lot of explanations and theories for this novel, and I think they're all valid, but I think this mind one is my favorite because it kind of like made it all make sense. Because throughout the entire thing I was just like, dang, this is a sad ass novel. Like, I didn't like it. It was a sad ass novel. But if you see it as like a mind and like how our mind operates, I think you would enjoy it a little bit more. So definitely 3 stars, but I think after reading the other like supporting articles or links or whatever, like I now give it a 4 stars. So the next book I have is a nonfiction. It is Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory. It is a very long title. So at 23, Caitlin worked at a crematory. It is so funny and also a bit sad at times. Like, she understands how death is sad, but she writes it in a way where I really feel like I'm just having a conversation with her, and it is so interesting and so hilarious. It made me smile and it made me laugh so many times. It also made me a bit sad sometimes, but mostly it was fun. It was a very fun read, and I'll definitely reread it. It is so well written. It's funny in a way that it's almost cathartic, because death is quite obviously a very heavy topic and not a fun topic, right? But she makes it fun in a way that it's cathartic, not disrespectful in any way. She also talked about how the death industry came to be and how funerals as we know it came to be, and also how her perception on death changed. And I feel like after you read this book, it'll change a little bit as well. She also shows what funerals look like in other cultures and how other cultures deal with death, and how I guess the mainstream way of dealing death would be the Western's perspective of dealing with death, sorry. She also explains the web of reference, which is really interesting. And I never thought death, like I said, would be a part of it, because I just saw death really as the mainstream way of seeing death, essentially. So one chapter that stood out to me is Pink Cocktail, because she talks about the Wari people in Brazil and how they actually eat and consume their dead loved ones. For us, it's not going to be the most satisfying thought or the nicest thing to think about, because it is outside of a web of references, right? But for them, it is something that's ceremonial and part of their culture, but then we wouldn't see it as that way, which I thought was really interesting, because how we deal with death, she explains, is like some of them don't even want to see the crematory process or the burial process. They just want it quick and done and out of the way, because we don't perceive death very well. Basically, it is bizarre to us because we want to handle death in a quick way, and it is in a way how like the funeral industry or the death industry capitalized on it, which I think is all really interesting. Like I said, I never thought about death in any way that she explained, so yeah, it is very interesting. It is also a little bit hopeful. It depends on how you read it. It was a bit hopeful for me, so definitely one of my favorites. This was a, what did I give this? This was 5 stars. The final book I have on the list is my absolute favorite in the entire list. It was the most hopeful, most beautiful book that I read, and that is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I think that's how you pronounce the name, Matt Haig. So Nora, our main character, goes into the Midnight Library and she ends up being able to try out different versions of her life, and how if she made a different decision, what would happen with that decision than she did in her root life. And I don't want to say anything more because that will definitely spoil the book, but it is so good. It is my favorite book, 5 out of 5. I guess this year especially, I've been going through this like midlife crisis essentially, even though I'm like only 22, but like I guess it's because my generation and how my generation grew up. I feel like we think that if we don't have a house, or if we didn't buy a house or own land essentially by 21, we're complete failures. Especially this year, I feel like I just wasn't accomplishing as much as I wished I would have outside of school. I was regretting a lot of things that I didn't do in my teen years. I was regretting a lot of things I didn't pursue, and reading this book just gave me so much hope. And it was beautifully written, and I empathize with Nora a lot. I do feel like I'm a very anxious person and I tend to overthink quite a bit, and this just shows that every decision you made for a good reason, and you affect people in a way that you don't think you will affect them. But something as minor as saying hello every day, or even less, affects somebody that you won't know. And similar, like if someone did something super small for me, it still affects me in a way that I wouldn't expect. And you have importance and potential, and I have importance and potential, and that is what I gathered most, or what I gained most, and what I gained most from this book. And yeah, like I said, it is a very hopeful book. If you are in the same situation, which I've gathered a lot of people are in the same situation, you can always talk to me about it. My DMs are always open. One little quote I kind of want to read to you at the very end of the novel that gave me most hope is this. The paradox of volcanoes was that they were symbols of destruction, but also life. Once the lava slows and cools, it solidifies and then breaks down over time to become soil, rich and fertile. If anything, the biggest takeaway is like, I'm a volcano, you are a volcano. Because something so destructive like this also has hope, also has potential, right? Just like me and you. So I hope you'll end up reading this book as well, because this is a 5 out of 5 for me. I will reread this whenever I'm needing a little bit of a pick-me-up. This is beautiful. And that brings us to the end of my video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will go read some of these books. Let me know if you have read any of these books. I'd love to hear your opinions. And also recommend me more books to read. I'm really in the market to read as much as I can while I'm in isolation, when I go back to Vancouver, or just in general, because we are gonna stay home for God knows how long. So thank you so much for always supporting me. I read your comments. I see your support even though I haven't been active in a very long time. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.
Can I be with you? Let me take